Hi guys, welcome to today's video. Let's talk about my favorite books so far this year. If I'm being honest, I've talked about all of these books extensively on my channel. So if you're a frequent watcher of my channel and you're sick of hearing me talk about these books, I'm sorry, and this video isn't for you. But if you love to hear a girl be passionate about the books she loves, then this video is for you. So I have, I think, 8 books to talk about. I did try to pick 10, but I didn't have 10, I only had 8. And I just want to do the books I absolutely loved this year. I have only rated 4 books 5 stars this year, which I'm happy with. Last year I gave out a lot of 5 stars, and this year I wanted to make it a goal to give out less 5 stars, you know, and I definitely achieved that, which I'm happy with. So these books I did really love, and I think I'm gonna think about them for a long time. Some of them are under 5 stars, but I still really loved them. So yeah, I'm just gonna talk about these books. I'll let you know a little bit about them, and that's pretty much it. So let's start with my favorite series of the year, because all of the books in this series I am counting as my favorite books this year, because I absolutely loved this series and I rated all of the books really highly. So the Villains and Virtues series by A.K. Kajino. I ate this series up. It is a fantasy romance series. We have a villain and a hero. She's not really a hero, but she's an incredibly sweet character and she cares so much for other people. And surprise, surprise, the villain, who is the male main character, also cares about other people. He is not cruel and conniving and evil like he tries to pretend he is, or like he thinks he is. This series has 3 books, and throughout these 3 books you follow this journey they're going on, and the romance, for one, is amazing. I just love them so much, and they're literally meant for each other. The romance is so good. It is definitely a slow burn, and like I said, I just love their characters. They go on a lot of adventures throughout these books, and I love that. It was so much fun to go on these adventures with them. The fantasy is a little harder to understand once you start it. I definitely was having trouble starting it, but once you get more into it, it makes a lot more sense. Please, if you start this series, like, just push through, because it definitely makes more sense as you go on, and it's so worth it. These books are also so funny. I was laughing so much. There's also so many little side characters that are so good, and little like creatures that talk. It is such an amazing world this author has built. I think about it all the time. Well, obviously, because this is one of my favorite series and my favorite series of the year so far. So I'm always thinking about this world and these characters and how much I love them. And then this series also has other books that follow it, but you do not have to read these books to complete the series. So there's the first 3 books in the series, and you read all of those and it's complete. But the author has written some extra books in the series. So we have Bountiful, which follows side characters in the trilogy, and like I said, you don't need to read this book to finish the series, but I would definitely recommend reading the 3 books in the series before you read this book, because I don't think it'd make a lot of sense. But this book, Bountiful, is my favorite book of the year. It is such a amazing book. The female main character in this book is also so sweet. She's been through so much, and I just feel for her. Like, I just want to protect her. She is so caring, but she's been so mistreated her whole life, and people misjudge her so much. And she also struggles so much with social interactions and just people in general. And I felt like I related to her character so much, and I really saw myself in her. And I love that she got to have a happy ending in this book. And the male love interest in this story is also such a sweet character, but even though they're both such caring and sweet characters, they still go together so well. Usually in romance books you have like opposite characters, like a grumpier one and then a nicer one. And when you have 2 characters that are very similar, I guess they're not really similar, but sometimes when I read books like that I get bored. But I definitely wasn't bored with this story. I felt like they went together so well, and they were still quite different. They had different attributes that made them who they were, and it was just such a wholesome and heartwarming story. And also the quest they went on was a lot of fun as well, and I just felt so many things reading this book. I 1000% recommend this series. I actually only own the third book in the Villains and Virtues series because I read them all on Kindle Unlimited, and I was gifted the third one, which I'm so thankful for, because I definitely want to own all of the books, because firstly the covers are so gorgeous, and also I loved the series, so I'd love to have all of the books at some point. Moving on, some of my other 5-star reads this year. Checkmate by Ali Hazelwood. This is a very, very loved book in the book community, I feel like. Ali Hazelwood is such a loved author by everyone. Well, not everyone, a lot of people, I think. She is my favorite author, and this book I absolutely loved, of course. It is a young adult romance, which is definitely not up my alley. I am not a big fan of YA, but since it's Ali Hazelwood, I had a feeling I would love this book, and I did. It is following 2 chess players, and their romance is so good. This book also has a lot of deeper themes, like Mallory, the female main character, has gone through quite a lot. She is the eldest sister, and she feels like she has to really take care of her family. She's just been through quite a bit in her life, and she feels like she has a lot on her shoulders. That was interesting to read about, and I like how Ali Hazelwood incorporated that into the story. It really added to Mallory's character, and I love that she learned to care for herself more and do what she wants to do with her life. Also, Nolan, the main character, was literally everything. I was obsessed with him, like I usually am when it comes to Ali Hazelwood main characters. He was so caring and sweet and just obsessed with Mallory, and it was so good. He would say the littlest thing and I would be giggling and kicking my feet. I annotated this book so much. There were so many good lines. I just overall really enjoyed this book, and if young adult isn't a genre you typically read, I would definitely still pick this up, because it did feel a little older, but it still had some like coming of age aspects. The characters were also a lot closer to my age. I think Mallory was 18 and Nolan was 20, which I'm 20, so I felt like I kind of related to them a bit more than some of the other books I read. Also, if you're not into chess, you definitely don't need to be to read this book. I don't like chess, like playing chess. I have liked chess media, like movies, but this was so enjoyable, and it's not really that hard to understand. I overall really enjoyed it. Okay, another 5-star is Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. This is a sport romance by Tessa Bailey. This is her first sport romance, I think, and it's the first book in the Big Shots series. So we have a golf player, which never heard of a golf romance book before, so I was a little intrigued, but I really enjoyed this story. Our female main character is this golf player, Wells' biggest fan, and their dynamic was so good. This book was just overall such a sweet book. I was so happy reading this book. I was just smiling the entire time. Their relationship was so incredibly sweet. I think I already said that, but it really was. I think you guys might be picking up on a theme here. I really like when romances are really sweet, but their dynamic, I literally just said that. It was so cute together, and Wells cared so much about her. Josephine, the film main character, has diabetes, and Wells was like so caring about her condition, but not in like an overbearing way. I don't know how to explain it. He researched about her condition and figured out the right things she would need, and just took the time to understand her illness and the things she would need and what's the right way to help her. And I really liked that. I love when we get chronic illness representation in books, and I like that she wasn't treated like she was incapable of doing certain things. Like, she was his caddy and he knew she was capable of doing that, and her illness wouldn't stop her, and if that's what she wanted to do, then she was going to do it. I have seen some mixed reviews for this book, so I definitely don't think everyone would love it, but I absolutely loved it, and I think people should give it a go, because there are some other Tessa Bailey books I didn't love, but this one I really liked, so I highly recommend it. Next we have An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. This was my first S.T. Gibson book, and is the only book I've read by her, and I have been really wanting to read a book by this author, and then I found out she was coming out with a Carmilla retelling. And Camilla is one of my favorite books. It is like probably my favorite classic. It is a vampire story. It's the first ever vampire book that's ever been written, and it is such a good classic. It's also shorter and a lot easier to understand, so if you want to get into classics, I highly recommend it. I was so excited for this book since it's a retelling of one of my favorite books, and this did not disappoint. It was so good. It is also dark academia, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I really liked this book, and the descriptions in this book and the lines in this book, I literally underlined so much. All of this is just beautiful sentences that I loved and that I want to inject into my veins. The way this author writes is really so beautiful, and I don't know how she does it. I'm obsessed with this book, and I think it's such a beautiful and dark, interesting story, and it was just such a good retelling. I think this author did such a good job of retelling this story and modernizing it, but also it still felt quite old because it was set in like the same time Camilla was written, I think, and it was just done so well. I highly recommend picking up this book, and I don't read a lot of books like this because one, I'm not the biggest fan of them, but also they are harder for me to read and take me longer to read, but I could not put this book down. I was so captivated, so I highly recommend this book. You could also read this book first and then read Camilla, or you could read Camilla first and then read this book. It's up to you, but I recommend at least picking up one of them. Next we have Kingdom of the Wicked. So I gave this book a 4.75. It was almost a 5 stars, but it wasn't quite there because this is the first book in a series, and when it comes to fantasy series, I like to see the series as a whole. Before I give a 5-star book, I very rarely give the first book in a fantasy series a 5 stars because it's incomplete and I need to see where the series goes. We are following a witch and a wicked prince of hell. Amelia, the female main character, experiences something really tragic. Her sister goes missing, and she has been really sheltered a lot of her life regarding her heritage and being a witch. But when her sister goes missing, a lot of stuff goes down, and she wants to discover what happened to her sister. And she summons one of the wicked princes of hell, who is Wrath, who I love. His character is literally everything. Everything he says, I just eat up. I don't know how this author wrote his character so well, and he works with Amelia to discover what happened to her sister, and just a lot of stuff happens in this book. A lot of stuff. It does start off a little slower, but then it picks up a bit, and I will say I was quite confused in this book regarding a lot of things at the end. Things kind of made more sense, but then I did read the second book recently and I was very confused during that book. But the female main character is also confused about a lot of things, and there's a lot of little details you need to remember, so that was a little difficult for me. I definitely struggled more with the second book than this book, but I overall really enjoyed the story. I loved the romance. I loved this like journey we were going on and all these things we were learning. It was really interesting, and so I highly recommend this series. This is a really popular booktok fantasy romance, but I haven't actually heard a lot of people talk about it for a little while. It was more popular maybe like a year ago or before, but I don't see many people reading it anymore. And I heard about this series and knew I really wanted to read it. I've seen a lot of mixed reviews, but I had a feeling I would like it, and I'm happy I was right. So I'm really excited to read the last book in the series and see how I feel about the series as a whole. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know some of your favorite books you've read this year. I love to add more books to my TBR and get recommendations from you guys. Let me know if you've read any of these books, if you had similar thoughts to me, or if you didn't like them. I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts. But yeah, I have a book Instagram that I post on quite frequently, and a book TikTok as well. I also have a Goodreads that's always linked down below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Bye.